This is my hobby, the greatest hobby. Hobbyists here, we are back at it again with our Talisman character exploration guide. Now, previously we have talked about the scout and how his mobility and path tokens work. And now we are on to the final character of the Woodland Expansion. Let's go ahead and get on to it. So the final character that we're going to be covering is a sinister maiden who is as without compassion as her arachnid companions, delighting in the misfortune of anyone foolish enough to cross her. Indeed, this is the Spider Queen. Now, I will say this right out of the gate, I do feel that the Spider Queen is probably the least effective Woodlands character inside of this whole expansion, just because I feel that our abilities don't allow for enough versatility. But let me not get too far ahead of myself. Let's go ahead and see what exactly the Spider Queen offers statistically. So, the Spider Queen has a strength of 2 and a craft of 4, which is average for most characters. As we can see here, we've got this tree logo. Again, if we're not particularly interested in playing with the Woodlands expansion, that tree logo is an indicator of what all you need to be removing, so that way you can find other ways to play with your Talisman adventures. She has a fate of 3, life of 4, is the only evil character inside the Woodland expansion, and she starts in the first blade, which is why we have her where we do. Now, much like the Lay Walker, the Spider Queen is the only character who starts inside the first blade of the entirety of Talisman, and because she has a fate value of 3, she can only ever be lightbound or darkbound. There is no opportunity to be unbound. So, if you want to take into consideration the fact that there are various risks and rewards when it comes to being lightbound or darkbound, especially inside of the Woodland region, then it is entirely up to you which way you want to go on about it. Also, from a position standpoint, she is the second furthest away from the Woodland corner, next to the Scout. The Lay Walker is slightly closer, but not by much in that regard. And as we can see with her character card, she's got 4 character abilities, so let's go ahead and dive into those. So the first ability says, you begin the game with 6 spider tokens on your character card. Like I mentioned in my previous explorations of these Woodland characters, and in my Woodland character talk inside of just this expansion's tutorial, each of the characters inside of this expansion are going to have their own set of tokens that best differentiates them from everybody else inside Talisman. So this is the spider token that is a reference. So, as we can see here, here are all 6 of the tokens. In fact, the Spider Queen has the most tokens inside of the entirety of the Woodlands expansion. Every other character is going to have fewer tokens to be able to use than in comparison to the Spider Queen. So that is definitely something to take into consideration. But let's go ahead and move forward into detailing what it is that these tokens can actually do. So, the second ability says that at the start of your turn, you may place 1 spider token from your character card on any space with a character that is web side face up. As you will see here, the web token has this web sign, and then when I talk about it later, it has this crawler side. So it states that it was any character that's on any space. So let's say that we have the Totem Warrior here, and he ended his turn previously on to this hill space. Well, it's at the start of your turn. You can simply place the web token right there. Now, in comparison to any other abilities that we've covered, this doesn't seem to provide any immediate strategical advantages when it comes to the Spider Queen. But as we go into this third ability, we can see that there's some benefits. So it says when you enter a space with a web token, you may immediately end your movement. When another character enters a space with a web token, he must immediately end his movement. Whenever a character ends his movement in a space with a web token, flip the token to its crawler side. So that was definitely a bit more detail. But let's say that for these next set of purposes, I'm just going to go to an overhead view to kind of show you guys what these movements mean. For the Spider Queen, as we can see here, let's say that the last character that we tried moving towards, we wanted to get to the Hidden Valley. Maybe we wanted to get lucky and start drawing more cards, but we're really struggling with being able to roll the right way, because characters have been using Dark Fate, or we've just been simply unlucky with our Light Fate rerolls. Well then, we can move. Even if we rolled a 6, because of this web token, we can literally stop right here and draw 3 cards that we need to. Now, if we're talking about the Woodlands expansion, that is something else. Inside of the Woodlands, you would want to be stopping on specific spaces or locations if you're trying to pick up certain items, or if you're trying to draw a certain amount of cards, or if you're looking for anything more so in specific. This can enable you to perhaps meet the requirements of your path card, which in turn can help you with being able to acquire the destinies, because that's essentially the whole goal with the Woodland characters, is that it all equips them for various means of resolving their path cards in order to be able to take these destinies for themselves. So being able to stop on certain locations might be a good thing. But on the other hand, let me show you what it means as far as opponents go. Now, when it comes to opponents, this could prove to be very fruitful. If you've got a bunch of dangerous cards on a particular space, or if you want to prevent them from being able to reach certain objects, let's say that on the opposite side of the web token, there is something like a Holy Lance or something that you want to get your hands on, or better yet, the Rune Sword. So if the Totem Warrior is moving, let's say he rolled a 4 in order to be able to reach it, then he could only move 2 spaces because of the web token. The web token would immediately stop him in his tracks, and the crawler space would be able to come up. This could also prove fruitful inside of the Woodland expansion, because if you're able to place the web token on, let's say, Mab's lair earlier on, then you could essentially put them into a pit trap, to where you could essentially trap them within the confines of the enemy or the various enemies, let's say of the various dense forest spaces where they're forced to fight multiple enemies. Then that could prove a role in being able to stop them as well from being able to achieve their goals. So that is definitely something to keep in mind with the Spider Queen, as that it essentially allows you to lay traps in various locations, or be able to stop yourself on certain spaces in order to pick up certain objects, or maybe to face certain enemies if you're feeling more comfortable. In addition to being able to be an obstacle towards your opponents, this last character ability can prove to be either very fruitful for yourself, or it could also be very harmful for your enemies as well. So with the Totem Warrior here on top of a crawler token, well, if we have the Reaper come after him, the card says that whenever a character on a space with a crawler token makes a roll, you may return a crawler token on a space to your character card to add or subtract 1 from that roll, to a minimum of 1. Now, why would you want to be doing this exactly? Well, in this scenario, you would want to subtract 1, because if you remember from this card, see that number 1? you could instantly kill him if you did this right. Well, let's say that instead of the Reaper, there's also the Werewolf too. In that case, you could also decrease his roll. If you remember this roll chart back in the Woodland Expansion. Or, if you're playing with the Harbinger expansion, let's say that we're really struggling and that we really don't want the world to end. If we've got the Harbinger right there, then maybe we want to increase the roll by 1. So that way we could start putting omens back and start reversing the conditions, so that way we are less likely to end up dying towards the end of the game. So this plays a role in those 3 expansions as well. So that is something that is more so a double-edged sword than a hindrance, because it can play a role in helping for the certain areas, or it can make it easier to take other enemies out. In the various rolling locations inside of the woodland area, there's the fairy ring, there's the swampland, and then there's also, of course, the Mystic Glen, which kind of goes straight off the corner from the village inside of the outer region. Or it could just be any spaces that require rolling. It could also help hinder if you're working at the chapel, if it's at the graveyard, if it's the forest, if it's at the crags, if it's at the city with the enchantress. Or it could be with the tavern, the temple, the warlock's cave, any space that requires rolling. You can either add to either help the character out, or you can take it away to make it even more difficult. So that is definitely something to keep into consideration when it comes to the Spider Queen. But overall, what exactly do I think of the Spider Queen when putting her abilities into this limelight? I still don't think it makes it any much better for her. Sure, she's good at sabotaging the players, which could be a good thing, but there's nothing really that gives her either stat boosts or any benefits for herself. It kind of seems more so of the lines of, well, I can't do anything for myself, so I will make sure that you can't do anything for yourself. And just inside a Talisman, it really can't work that way. Because what else can you really do? Being able to lay these traps, maybe help yourself move forward, might be good for you, but in the offhand chance that it doesn't, or that it makes things worse, what can you really do at that point? That's definitely something else that you gotta think of when it comes to playing as Spider Queen. You may be able to sabotage everyone else, but what are you really doing to benefit yourself? But other than that, this is it. We have finally concluded the Woodland Expansion characters. And I just want to say that if you made it this far, I want to thank you so much for your contributions, especially shoutouts to the Talisman subreddit. You guys have been absolutely phenomenal. And now, I'm going to sign off. See you guys in the next set of characters that we're going to be covering.